This is KSL Sunday Edition with Deanie Wimmer.
Good morning, I'm Deanie Wimmer, and this is Sunday Edition. We're changing things up a bit here on Sunday mornings. Our mission on this show is to build up, inform, and celebrate Utah families and communities. We're going to go out into the community, and I look forward to talking with many of you about what's on your minds and what's going right. We need more of that, and we're going to spotlight it. Here's a look at what's coming up next in our half hour.
I think the thing this history shows is that we don't need to be afraid of change.
How a new scholarly history could actually give us insights about our kids today. We're talking about the Young Women organization in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I think my longevity is in part due to a superpower that I have, and that's surrounding myself with amazing people.
If you've had kids in Utah over the last decade, she has been the Educator-in-Chief. Her message for parents. And a Utah community recognized recently for what they didn't do. No insults, no name calling, just getting things done.
The goal is for everyone to get to say their piece, everyone gets to hear them.
Even the governor has something to say about why we need more cities like this.
There's this idea out there, Deanie, that if we just win this next election, we'll never have to deal with those people again. And that's not true.
And that's where we want to start this morning, in Draper. I recently came across a write-up about this city. It praised Draper for what residents didn't do. Oh, you'll know what I'm talking about because we see this all the time. Name-calling, insults, shouting down the presenters.
At what point are you going to stand up and do something? That's the question I want to know.
We don't like this, so...
I know. I'm sorry.
But in the face of divided government, Draper was a city of civility. I'm here at Draper City Hall, where the headline, strange as it sounds, is for what didn't happen. Mayor Troy Walker is here. Set the stage and tell me what happened that night.
Well, we had a kind of a controversial zone change request.
And it was packed.
It was packed. We had all the seats full.
What were you afraid would happen?
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't really afraid of anything happening. We have a really good system in our meetings, and so I think one of the keys that we've adopted since I've been mayor is we have a time clock. So everyone gets a chance to talk, and I'll let anyone talk that wants to, but they get 3 minutes. And then they don't have to use all 3 minutes, which is what they always advise them. But everybody gets a chance to speak. If you don't sign a card, I'll call you out of the audience. So we never let it go where someone hasn't had a chance to say what they want to say.
But surely you've seen the city council meetings
Yes.
that are contentious and what can happen.
I've had those before, and so this one was great. Folks were, they were passionate about their issues, but we have a rule against clapping and applause and shouting and that kind of stuff. The goal is for everyone to get to say their piece, everyone gets to hear them. Council will listen. We don't engage them in conversation, but we listen to everybody. And really, everyone behaved. If you don't follow our rules, if you don't leave, we'll have you escorted out. So we haven't had to do that.
What happened as a result? You were able to vote?
Yeah, it's nice when, everything's so contentious anymore. I think the social media, everyone spends all their time watching news channels and in the echo chamber of Twitter, X, whatever it is, and Facebook, and everybody gets riled up and just gets on there and gets worked up over everything. And these folks were upset about what might happen if the zone changed, but they were awesome. They got to say their piece, and then the council listened and debated, and then they voted. And it was a normal, peaceful meeting. Not
everybody agreed with the vote, but they all left peaceably.
Yeah, we didn't have any issues. It was a passionate group, but nobody was out of line. Nobody violated our rules. Everyone was nice and, respectful to each other. So it was great.
I have to admit, when I read the write-up in the newsletter, I thought how strange that we're noting something that didn't happen, and yet it's a sign of the times.
It is. It was nice to just see it be a normal, everybody gets to say their piece, and you may not have won the night, but you got heard, and we explained why we took the action we took. And so, it was just the way it should be. We're in a weird state politically where there's so much divisiveness, and people just take a side, and they're not oftentimes willing to listen to the other side, or even think there is another side. And so you get everybody siloed. And so you kind of expect you're going to get that in a meeting. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to get really mad people that aren't going to be able to see the other side's position. That wasn't the case for us that night, so it was nice.
How important is it to good government to have those conditions?
Well, I think it's the key to good government, because if we can't debate peacefully, then then the contention doesn't create good decisions. It creates, people make decisions out of fear or anger.
What message do you have for fellow Utahns who may not live in your city?
Well, I think if, get involved, it's good to go to council meeting. It's good to get involved and see what's happening in local government. But when you come, either come with some information or come to learn. Don't come in with half the facts and just your side of it. It's always good to know what the other side is, because not always, but oftentimes there's usually middle ground that people can get to. So my advice is, if you want to persuade your city council, come with some facts, be respectful, follow the rules, and they're going to listen to you.
And there it is. Utah's governor not only agrees, but he has proof that people are more influential and they're more likable when they disagree better. Stanford University researched that question as Governor Cox has led the Disagree Better initiative for nearly the past 2 years. We have seen local recent examples of Disagree Better at its best and not so much. And so we wanted to revisit your initiative. As head of the Governors Association, you were able to make Disagree Better part of the national conversation.
Yeah, it was an incredible opportunity for a year to lead that organization, but also to talk about conflict resolution and about the foundation of our country, this pluralistic society in which we live, this experiment that we embarked on almost 250 years ago, about how we can live and work together and disagree without hating each other. And that was the focus. We took it all across the country. It was incredibly well received.
To remind people of your initiative, it's not disagree less.
Healthy conflict is important. Conflict is neutral. I always tell people that. Conflict can be good or conflict can be bad, but conflict itself is neutral. What we're trying to propose and trying to demonstrate, I don't always get it right, is healthy conflict. And our nation was founded on this idea that the Constitution would force us to work together even though we disagree. But it was set up in a way that we could have these disagreements, that we shouldn't disagree less, that we should be passionate about the things we believe in.
About a year into the initiative, you actually had research that showed it helped candidates and it helped elected leaders.
Yeah, so one of the things we wanted to do was to really research this, and we were grateful the Depolarization Lab at Stanford did some work around this and found a couple things that are really important. The first is that when you have two politicians, a Republican and a Democrat, talking together about how they can actually like each other and still disagree, that it actually depolarized the people who were watching that ad or that video. And specifically, it lowered their tendencies or their thoughts of violence towards others. So a really healthy kind of depolarization, less violence when that happens. But the second thing we didn't know would happen in today's kind of market, in today's atmosphere, is that people who watched that actually liked both sides better and more, and were more willing to vote for the people who exhibited this type of behavior. As much as I would love politicians to try to model this out of the goodness of their hearts, I knew it would go further if it helped them win elections.
There was a self-interest.
Yeah, there's a self-interest piece.
So how do we move Disagree Better from the political and campaign sphere to more everyday life and the public element of that?
Yeah, I think this is something that's going to take all of us working together. Certainly, I'm not going to solve the problem. Sometimes I'm part of the problem, honestly. I know that. It's hard. In this atmosphere, again, you get rewarded. The problem is the incentives are all wrong. Mm-hmm. You get rewarded on social media when you say the bombastic thing, right? I think we have to practice this in our families. That's where it starts for us, is at home. The way we treat each other at home really matters. I think religion plays a big role in this. The last piece of this that we found was remarkable is service. When you serve in your community, when you serve in your school, wherever it is, service has a depolarizing effect and helps bring people together.
What was your reaction when you saw some of the town hall involving our congressional leaders that have ended in shout downs, basically?
Yeah, well, incredibly disappointing. It's not the first time we've seen that. Back in 2017, we had some town halls like that. I also tell people, you will never get someone to change their mind by attacking them. If you truly want to change the way the country's going, then that's not going to do it. It's not going to help at all. It may make you feel good and feel, again, the dopamine hit afterwards, but you've actually hurt your cause by acting that way. We are very fortunate to live in Utah. For the examples, the bad examples like that town hall, there are still a million examples of us doing it the right way. I think people are desperate for a better version of politics. There's just a market failure. Neither party is offering them anything different. And I think the first party that figures this out is going to do very well.
So we can see the benefits of disagreeing better, but whether you're running for office, making your case at city council meeting, or even just creating calmer conditions at home. Coming up next on Sunday Edition, she's overseen our children's education and has shaped our schools for the past decade. And as she prepares to step down, what she sees as our biggest challenge ahead.
It means that schooling has to look different than it has in the past.
Then from beehives to road shows and camp, we look at traditions in the Young Women organization and how they've shaped Latter-day Saint teenagers across the world for 150 years. Welcome back. If you've had children in Utah over the past decade, then this next woman has had a big influence on their education and our schools. Sydnee Dickson grew up in a 2-room school in Antimony, Utah, in Garfield County. She's now the state superintendent, and she's been there longer than any in recent history. Superintendent, as you get ready to step down as the top educator in Utah, what are the most pressing issues facing our schools?
I think our students are in this time of great excitement and great challenge at the same time. Our schools are really set up to be more personalized than ever before. Kids have a lot of choices. In Utah, certainly our families have a lot of choices about where their kids can attend school. But students are being prepared for a world that we can't comprehend, and it's moving so rapidly. So preparing students in a way that they're ready as they leave our system to meet and adapt to all of those changes, I think is our greatest challenge, because it means that schooling has to look different than it has in the past. One of the greatest changes has been the onset of digital teaching and learning. I was reflecting recently on my work as a teacher and how much work I had to do that involved paper, preparing, and where did I get my information? This was prior to the internet. So think of teaching in that world before the internet, and for kids who went to the library to get all of their knowledge from an encyclopedia, and now they have that on their phone, in their hand. They have a world full of information. That has dramatically changed how we teach. The other thing that has changed dramatically over time is mental health. We are seeing behaviors that we've never seen before as young as kindergarten. Kids acting out in different ways that make it difficult for our teachers to know how to best support them. So you see more mental health services coming into schools to support students and their families. So schools have been called on to do more and more, and by that I mean the adults in the system are called on to do more and more to support the individual needs of students. That has changed dramatically over my career.
Did you ever think you'd see a day when there was an armed guard in every school?
No, you know, our campuses have always been wide open. I started teaching in the 80s and they were definitely wide open. They were the hub of the community. We expected community members and families to come and go without even checking in at the office. Today, that's a very different scenario, and we expect everybody to check in and out of the office. We have vestibules that are locked down, entry points into the schools, and for sure the hardening of schools, but it's really about the heart, the culture of the school. That has not changed. When you walk into a school, you should know within minutes what the culture of that school is like, and that should be a place of joy and caring and empathy and deep levels of learning.
That part of the mission hasn't changed.
Correct. The mission of public education as both an economic and a civic driver has not changed.
You've been superintendent more than 10 years, and I can't find a superintendent in recent history that has had more longevity. What do you attribute that to?
I think my longevity is in part due to a superpower that I have, and that's surrounding myself with amazing people. So when you are mission driven, when your mission is about something that's really a higher purpose, that can keep you in the game a little bit longer. Then you surround yourself with people who you want to show up and work with every day.
Your peers say that part of that longevity is because you have a skill and ability to engage with rather than working against lawmakers in the ongoing struggle for school funding.
My approach has always been trying to find common ground. I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't care about children. So that's where you start, whether you are a policymaker in the legislature, a board member, a community member that has a vested interest, a philanthropist, a parent. It doesn't matter what your role is. People care about kids. If you start there, then you can build out from what can we do together for education rather than what can we do to pit each other, to pit ourselves against one another.
What would you like your legacy to be in the state's education system?
I do not think about my legacy, but I think about impact, which I guess is maybe the same thing. And for me, it's about the moment. I hope I've been impactful in the moment and impactful to the one. There's a story behind every piece of art. So as important
to that
as it
effort,
is to
she's
have
known for traveling to schools throughout the state, celebrating successes,
So they had the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic ever present on their minds.
and even spotlighting the artwork of students on the State Board of Education walls.
How big of a deal is it that we have now full-day kindergarten in Utah?
It's a really big deal. Before full-day kindergarten was put into law with funding, we were not doing that well. Kindergarten's not a requirement in our state. But we had very few opportunities for families to engage in full-day kindergarten. So that, coupled with a huge literacy initiative, has made all the difference. And we're really starting to see, just in a few years, the needle move.
How concerned should parents be about the elimination of the National Department of Education?
You know, the Department of Education has a lot of different functions. And I think there's concern or thought that the law will somehow change. Students with disabilities will continue to be a focus of the federal government. The federal government provides some equalization when it comes to funding for students living in poverty, funding students who have disabilities, feeding students. These are national priorities in order for us to be a nation that is effective in terms of civic responsibility and a well-educated populace. So I don't see those things going away.
What other message do you have for Utah parents about their students and our schools?
When parents are true partners in the education system with teachers and with their children, that trifecta, we see a huge difference. So how do we work together to make sure that we're supporting one another? And that makes for a stronger education system.
She says Utah is unique in the way that industry, business, and education work together to prepare students for life after high school. If you have friends or family members that you think might like to watch this interview and may have missed it, they can find it right now on KSLTV.com and our YouTube channel. Still ahead on Sunday Edition, we gain some insights into our teenagers that will stand the test of time.
I think the thing this history shows is that we don't need to be afraid of change. Change has been a constant.
I talked with the historian who just wrote a scholarly book about the Young Women's Program with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more than 150 years, the Young Women Program in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has provided spiritual, social, and civic preparation for girls all over the world. The church has released its first scholarly history of the Young Women organization called Carry On. What started as the Retrenchment Association became the Mutual Improvement Association, and this history has a valuable insight for us today.
This is the first For Strength of Youth booklet. It was originally published in '65. Retrenchment was kind of essentially a negative emphasis. Don't wear this, cut back on this, don't do these things. Whereas improvement became a more positive, outward-looking, broader focus. Here's a picture of one of the big dance festivals.
I remember those.
Yeah. Improvement was a big concept in the 19th century. The idea that things are getting better and that we can build.
You quote a young woman who had written how she was so excited to be able to have a voice and to express herself through writing things that were really ahead of the era.
Yeah, one of the real goals, especially that the adult women leaders adopted early in the in the retrenchment movement, the Young Ladies Organization, was to get girls to stand up and speak, and also to give them opportunities to write and to express themselves.
I love seeing where it came from, which is simply from a gathering of girls who wanted to make sure they knew who they were in a world that was changing so drastically. And I gather now with little groups of young women all over the world who still want to know who they are.
You talk about as the church became a worldwide organization that young women had to also evolve to kind of meet different cultures and the needs in those cultures. And I thought a perfect example of that was there's a picture of some young women in Mongolia in a tent, their first camping in a tent.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about some of those things that you found.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite stories in the book. The church had only been in Mongolia for a couple of years, and there was this desire to establish the Young Women's Program, and what is more central to the Young Women's Program than camp?
Even the American tradition of camping looked different in various countries. She looked at other young women traditions, beehives, many with beehive hairdos, road shows, and dance festivals.
We've seen so many of the changes and the evolutions, and yet a lot of young women today are learning and gaining the same lessons that those very initial young women gained so long ago.
Yeah.
Did you find that in your research too?
Yeah, it was interesting. Early on in the organization's history, they articulated a core mission of helping young women to gain testimonies. I think that's still very much at the core of what the Young Women Organization does and tries to do, even if it's not being articulated in exactly the same way anymore. But always that desire for young women to know that they have a Father in heaven, that they are loved by Him, that Jesus Christ is their Savior and they can have a relationship with Him.
I think turning to these pages and realizing that is a part of who we have always been is really important.
And then this is the laurel.
And she says writing this book taught her a reassuring lesson for all parents.
I think the thing this history shows is that we don't need to be afraid of change. Change has been a constant. You can almost set your watch by generational crisis. Like every 25 years, we're going to worry about the kids and whether they're going to be okay. And they are. We've lived through that before. We need the concern because that's what drives us to work hard and to engage and to care about them. But we've over and over shown that we have the resources to teach our young people, to help them gain testimonies, to help them be part of the community.
I love that reassurance. Thanks so much for joining us this Sunday morning. Music and the spoken words next, followed by General Conference.